This is a video that's going to be really important for you to watch if you're newer to the Gunpla hobby. If you joined after COVID, if you got into Gunpla from Witch from Mercury, if you're only, relatively new to the hobby, I think this is going to be an important video for you to see because I think it'll help you understand some of the more long-term fans of Gunpla a lot more. A lot of older Gundam fans have been very vocal about Bandai's recent treatment of the line and how very little they've been showing off for new kits, how little they've been putting out at retail, and even when you factor in premium Bandai kits, how little they've been putting out overall. And if you're new to the hobby, it's easy to think, well, these are very high quality kits, maybe they're just prioritizing quality over quantity. However, as I think you'll see today, I'm going to show you just what a real Bandai hobby reveal event should look like, because boy oh boy did we just get one. Honestly, I kind of feel like I've traveled back in time to 2016 or 2017, right when I started doing Gunpla news, and we're just looking at some insane new reveals from back then because it really does have that same kind of energy. Because today we'll be looking at 10 new retail kits that were announced from Bandai and 3 premium Bandai models, which is probably the biggest single batch of kits I've ever had to talk about in a Gunpla news in the last 5 to 6 years. So sit down, strap in, and get ready to experience a real Gunpla event. So going into this event, much like anyone else who's been in the hobby for as long as I am, I did not have particularly high expectations given Bandai's recent track record. So when the first couple kits they announced were just a couple recolors for the Build Divers line, I was not particularly surprised. True, this was a multi-day event and more things were going to be revealed later, but the first day's reveals were very much in line with what a more cynical Gundam fan like myself would expect from them. We got a recolor of the Command Quanta in a adequate color scheme, but nothing particularly remarkable, and a non-chrome standard release version of a kit that used to be exclusive to some sort of CD limited edition pack-in. Now, funnily enough, even though this was a, from what I understand, fairly major kit in the Build Metaverse anime, for some reason, no one was really upset that this was a exclusive pack-in with some sort of CD. Like, I didn't see anyone getting upset about that. I guess that just goes to show how completely lukewarm people were to the Metaverse anime. But if you wanted that set and you didn't want to get the CD, you can get it at retail now. No chrome colors, but same great kit, or probably okay kit. It's based off the Barbatos and it has a whole bunch extra crap on the back, so I don't know how the stability of this model is going to be, but it's perfectly fine, and now it's going to be out there for you to build if you so desire. This was very much in line with what we were expecting, so no one was really surprised by this. We were a little bit surprised, however, when we got to see model kits for Gundam Requiem for Vengeance. This is a Western-produced CG animated Gundam miniseries that a lot of people were not even really sure if we were going to get model kits for at all. It has very, I guess the polite way to call it is unique mobile suit designs. I'm not going to pretend like I like these. I'm not going to pretend like they're the coolest thing ever because I kind of massively dislike them. But it's something that I'm not really going to get into in this video since that's not really the point here. We got a couple new high-grade announcements. Both of these models were, unsurprisingly, premium Bandai, and everyone was kind of expecting that. The quality of the models does look fairly good for what they are, but of course, when your base models look like this, there's only so much you can do to sell someone like me on them. With that said, though, I do think the Zaku looks a little bit better than the Gundam. Either way, neither of these are models that I'm going to be rushing to the premium Bandai store to pre-order. And once the first day of the event came to an end, that was all we saw. That was it. A couple P Bandai kits from an upcoming miniseries, and a couple recolors from another miniseries that really didn't do all that well. Normally this would be considered underwhelming, but since expectations were so low at this point, this was pretty much just what everyone was expecting. Once day 2 of the event rolled around, there were no Gunpla revealed at this event, as it was meant to be encompassing all of Bandai Hobby's products, with Gunpla only being a small portion. Day 2 was entirely dedicated to the 30 Minutes franchise, 30 Minute Missions, 30 Minute Sisters, and 30 Minute Fantasy, which has more of a Knight's Armor theme to it. Now, I'm personally not super interested in the 30 Minutes line. I think there were some interesting ideas at the beginning of the line, but since the whole gimmick is that they're super generic, interchangeable looking robots, there's only so many of them they can make before they start to get boring, and I kind of got bored of 30-minute missions a while ago. The real highlight for day 2 was the Armored Core 6 30-minute missions collab models. These were announced a very, very long time ago, and we finally got to see what they're actually going to look like. I don't personally have a dog in this race since I'm not a huge Armored Core fan, but safe to say a lot of people were excited for these models, and a lot of people are now even more excited that they've been revealed. They showed off 2 complete mecha from Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, as well as an add-on set for customizing your own. Given the nature of the game, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of interchangeable parts on these models, and you'll be able to make lots of fun combinations. Hopefully this line goes on long enough that we can get some of the more interesting body designs, such as the tank legs or the quad legs, but that remains to be seen. So by this point, things were still going pretty normal. Everyone was seeing about what they expected to see, and it was only on the third day that things really started to go haywire. So the first thing that happened on day 3 was a little bit of an oopsie by Amazon Japan, because they showed off the pre-orders for some of the kits that were supposed to be released that day far, 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 far too early. Halfway through the day yesterday, we already knew what 3 of the upcoming models were going to be. So the first of these models was something that probably most people saw coming, and that was the high-grade Lightning Buster Gundam from Gundam Seed Freedom. Now, the Seed Freedom kits that have been released so far have been just utterly phenomenal. There's a new construction system they're using for the bodies. They have an incredible amount of articulation. The stability is second to none. I cannot wait to get my hands on them because they look like some of the best high grades that Bandai has ever made. So obviously a new dual Gundam with this construction system was very cool to see, but it was also something a lot of us were expecting. I remember when this kit was first announced, most of the discussion that I was having with my friends was more so about, speculation regarding whether we'd see a Buster Gundam Revive made from this mold, and whether it would be retail or P Bandai. Funnily enough, we all kind of completely glossed over the SD Cross Silhouette Mighty Strike Freedom, and I think that's mostly just because it was, again, a very predictable release. Now granted, it's a very welcome one. I love the SD Cross Silhouette line and welcome any new additions to it, but the Mighty Strike Freedom isn't a design that I'm super excited about, so I wasn't really that hyped for this one. The last model of the 3, though, this was the really interesting one. Our first ever really monumental occasion for the Real Grade line, because we've got our first Real Grade 2.0, and fiddling enough, with this being the 40th anniversary of the Gundam franchise, the 45th anniversary of the Gundam franchise, sorry, my brain's still living in 2020, we got to see a brand new RX-78 version 2.0. Now, I've got some thoughts on this kit. First of all, I'm glad we have a new kit of the RX-78, because that original RX-78 Real Grade, yes, it's based off the 1-1 statue, and I like that about it. It's just not that good of a kit, and I think it's great that there's a newer RX-78 that people that like the modern Real Grade style construction can enjoy. This kit very clearly draws inspiration from the Perfect Grade Unleashed of all places, with its just eye-wateringly detailed inner frame. This goes beyond the inner frames of recent Real Grade kits like the High Nu Gundam and just takes it to another level, because the Real Grade's inner frame is genuinely amazing. Probably the most incredible bit of engineering, though, on this kit was how they designed the core fighter, though, because this kit has both a core fighter and torso articulation at the same time. And the way they accomplished that was by making the freaking core fighter itself bend in half. That's right, the articulation for the torso is built into the core fighter, and the core fighter itself is what's bending and moving around. This is a really incredible piece of engineering, and that combined with the fact that I just know that this thing is going to be an amazing companion piece to the Real Grade Zeong is kind of tempting me to get this kit, especially the latter. This thing plus a Real Grade Zeong, that is a phenomenal centerpiece for your Gunpla collection. With that said, though, I don't 100% love this kit, and I think what it mostly comes down to is something that's oftentimes a sticking point for me when it comes to models like this, and that's the proportions. I'm very finicky about what proportions I do and don't like on a model kit, and I don't 100% love the proportions on the Real Grade 2.0. I think most of the problems are caused by the fact that they did make the frame so detailed, they made the frame so substantial, that it ended up making the final kit look a little too bulky. All of the armor has to lay on top of that frame, which makes it even bulkier than the frame, which was already pretty close to the correct proportions for the RX-78 already. It kind of ends up giving the impression that you're looking at a cosplay of the RX-78. With how big the shoulders are, with how big the chest is, with how big the legs and the arms and the head are, it kind of gives the impression that you're looking at an RX-78 that's designed to fit a human cosplayer inside of it. So between those 3 early leaks, that gave us quite a lot to think about leading into the event, as the main event was actually supposed to start later in the evening, America time. So when that time came around, of course, we saw the official images of these kits as they were meant to be revealed, and we even saw a really cool trailer for the Real Grade 2.0. We also saw a couple other kits in addition, and we were not prepared for what we saw. So for context, there was a bit of a leak floating around before this event. It didn't say any names, at least not specifically, but it told us what grades and what series we would be seeing kits from. It told us we'd be seeing 2 high grades from Seed Freedom, an SD from Seed Freedom, and Real Grade from Original Gundam, which a lot of other people correctly predicted was the RX-78 2.0, but I personally was more so thinking would be a different mobile suit from original Gundam, such as a real grade Gelgoog. But hey, now that we have an RX-78 2.0, maybe the door's open for us to see some more Zeon real grades, who knows. But beyond all the listings I just mentioned, the whole leak list in retrospect ended up being pretty much accurate. Of course, it didn't help that Bandai themselves also had a little bit of a preview list on their own website which had very similar information, albeit wasn't quite as specific as the leak list was. So one of the listings that had a little bit of discussion around it was a figurized standard release for Gundam Seed Destiny. Now, we did get a figurized standard Lacus a little while back, and that was a generally popular kit, so a lot of people were suspecting that we'd be seeing a figurized standard mirror to go with it. That is the kind of the obvious next choice, and Bandai in recent years has been very obvious and very safe with their choices, though a lot of us were predicting that that's what we'd see. However, we pretty much all agreed that the absolute best possible scenario would be if that figurized standard was a Luna Maria Hawk instead, since that's everyone's favorite girl from Gundam Seed Destiny. Well, when the evening rolled around and we finally got to see the kits revealed as was intended, guess who we freaking saw on that webpage? That's right, guys, I already posted about it on the community tab, absolutely popping off, losing my mind when this was announced, because we got to see figurized standard Luna Maria Hawk. They actually made the kit we were all hoping they would make, and it turned out amazingly. I'm just gonna have to gush over this kit for a minute because I love the amount of effort that went into this, and I'm really hoping that between this and another kit we also saw at the event, that we're gonna be seeing a lot more figurized standards based off of famous Gundam characters in the future. So right off the bat, you can tell the body sculpting, the articulation for this thing looks great. The color separation for a lot of these recent figurizes has been really amazing. Things like that little yellow marking on her chest, some of the smaller details in her suit, those are all gonna be rendered in plastic because the color separation on these recent figurized standards has been absolutely top-notch and very, very impressive. Of course, looking at the figure from behind, you can see there are certain other assets that she has that are very appealing, and the sculpt of this model was very clearly designed to make sure that those assets remain accentuated and aren't broken up for articulation, and I definitely appreciate that. So shout out to the guy on Bandai's design team that insisted that her ass be perfect. I see you and your work is appreciated. The most impressive thing about this kit to me, though, has to be the accessories that it comes with, because it comes with just about everything that you could possibly want for a Luna Maria Hawk figure. She has a helmet that can be used separately. You can have her hold it in her hand, just kind of have it by her side, but she can also put it on her head, and her face is visible through the visor. The visor is also removable, and you have multiple different face options. The neutral smiling face is a printed-on tampographed part, so that's going to be just like the faces you get with your frame arms girl type kits. However, the other two faces use water slide decals for the eyes, so you have a little bit of a customization option there. In addition to the alternate parts for the different faces and the helmet, one of the most hyped up parts of this kit, and the thing that everyone was losing their mind over, is you actually get an entire alternate torso with the pilot suit half unzipped, revealing her classic green shirt underneath. This is based off the promotional art of the character that was used on all sorts of different branding and merchandise, so it's a very iconic look for her. And even more exciting for a lot of people than the fact that this part existed at all was the fact that there was a little text call out next to it announcing that the green part of the torso was going to be made out of a softer material. So while I don't think she's going to have squishable booba, as I'm pretty sure that's not exactly what they had in mind here, it seems like the shirt material is going to have a bit of a squish to it to make it feel a little more realistic. And with the way that this is designed as a separate insert piece, I'm sure there's already dozens of just way too talented Japanese modelers out there that are making all sorts of different insert parts to replace it. Just saying, the possibilities out there, the options out there, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to take it. With that said, though, I cannot stress enough how absolutely hyped I am for this kit. This is the first time I've ever seen a figurized model that genuinely sold me. There have been figurizes before that I've bought because they were on sale and I thought they looked kind of cool. There were ones that I bought because I kind of liked the character, but I didn't love the kit. But this is the first time that I've seen a figurize that has me genuinely looking forward to its release. That has never happened before, and I am delighted that this kit turned out the way that it is. So the moment this kit comes out, the moment it arrives at my door, you better believe I'm building it. Now, I did pre-order that kit along with something else to help save on the shipping a little bit, and that is the next kit that we'll be talking about, the Blitz Dual Gundam. This is another high-grade model from Gundam Seed Freedom, and like the Lightning Buster, it looks pretty fantastic. This is another one that everyone was kind of expecting because we saw the Lightning Buster early, so everyone correctly predicted that the second Seed Freedom high grade was of course going to be the Dual Blitz. And it's a great kit, right? It's a great kit on its own. You know, it's got all the gimmicks work, all the bits on the shoulders fold open, everything flips out. It's all super cool. Love it. It's great. But what really overshadowed the fact that this is the Dual Blitz was when people realized that you can take the armor off of it and underneath is a full Dual Gundam Revive. We don't need to speculate about a Dual Gundam Revive being made out of this kit because we already have it. This kit is the Dual Gundam Revive. And when we realized that, everyone lost their minds. And honestly, myself included, because I'm not the biggest fan of the base Dual Gundam. I kind of like the Assault Shroud better. But just the fact that we're getting a new kit of the Dual Gundam with the Seed Action System construction, that is such an easy sell to me. It's an amazing way to have a kit constructed. I really hope they use it for more high grades in the future, and it's just all around amazing. So between those two kits, it really changed the tone of how we were seeing this event. We had our expectations low and our expectations were just barely being met, but this pushed us up a bit. We went to bed feeling pretty good, or at least I went to bed, because I was under the impression that the day was over, the event was over, and we weren't going to see anything else. What I didn't realize was that a few hours later, Bandai did something that they have not done for years and years and years, and that is show additional prototypes at an in-person event. And that is how we got to see some of the most exciting and mind-blowing reveals of the night. Because when I was half asleep in bed scrolling through my phone and I saw these pictures, I genuinely didn't even acknowledge them as real until I woke up the next morning. Because what I saw as I was scrolling were prototypes for a high-grade Universal Century Bolinoic Saman and a high-grade Universal Century Psycho Gundam Mark II. Up until the Destroy Gundam came out just a few weeks ago, there was basically nothing in the HGUC line for a massive stretch of time, so seeing two massively wanted kits get announced was absolutely unreal. And the best part is, they both look phenomenal. I'm going to start with the Bolinoic Saman since that's the one we got to see more of since we had a full color prototype for it, and Bandai went absolutely ham with this kit. When they decided they were finally going to make this kit, they decided they were going to make it as good as they possibly could. And boy did they, because this kit looks phenomenal. The color separation for all the yellow pieces is correct. There's color separation for the red accents for all the interiors of the thrusters. The little accent verniers on the legs have correct red and gray coloring. This is basically the greatest Bolinoic Saman kit we will ever get, because it's also the first Bolinoic kit we're ever getting, and it will probably be the last as well. So they made sure that the one time that we're getting a Bolinoic Saman model, it will be the greatest model they can possibly make. And I really appreciate that mindset. Then moving on to the second prototype they showed, we have the Psycho Gundam Mark II. This is a really crazy kit to see in the same year as the Destroy Gundam, because we're basically getting two of the biggest Gundams in the Gundam universe within the same year. To be completely fair, we did not get prices or release dates announced for these kits, so it is entirely possible that the Psycho Gundam is maybe coming out early next year. But given that it's only March, I'm going to go ahead and assume this is coming out this year. It looks pretty great. I was really surprised by how much of a new mold this was. I didn't really remember how much they changed from the Psycho to the Psycho Mark II. Now, of course, we did already get the arms for the big mobile armor thing from Metaverse that I can't be arsed to remember the name of because, well, it's from Metaverse. But even then, it was one of those things like the Blitz Gundam arm on the real grade gold frame where people would like joke about, oh, I guess this means we're getting a Psycho Mark II now, but no one actually believed we were getting a Psycho Mark II from it. But here it is, guys. It's real, it's happening, and I'm still kind of in shock. But what if I told you guys, and don't answer this question because I'm sure you already know if you've been paying attention to social media last night. What if I told you that these weren't the only two kits they showed prototypes for? What if I told you there were two more? Just to get the less interesting one out of the way first, they showed a Hyzak custom, right? This is based off that Hobby Hyzak mold they made for the Gundam base kit. And it's not an ideal Hyzak model. It's very specifically based off the Advance of Zeta version. So if you're a fan of the classic Zeta Gundam anime Hyzak, this is not going to be the kit for you. But it is going to be available in the classic Hyzak colors with the Hyzak Customs specialized shoulder pad. Now, this is one of the only premium Bandai kits we saw at the event. And it's also a kit that I think is perfectly appropriate as a premium Bandai model, so no real complaints here. However, the other model we saw was a complete out of left field announcement that no one saw coming, and that was a figurized standard of another classic female character from Gundam. It was, of course, the legendary, iconic Double Zeta Gundam character, no, just kidding, it was Pull 2. It was Pull 2. You know, still great, you know, no shade to Pull 2. Hamon would have been cooler. Just saying. So this is a very early prototype, so there's not much we can say about this, but it looks like it's a similar sort of thing to Luna Maria, where she's in her pilot suit, and she looks like a pretty solid representation of the character. Now, with how many option parts Luna Maria came with, and how some of the other previous figurized standards, like Choo Choo, for example, came with her squatting leg parts as an alternate piece, I'm kind of wondering if we're going to get anything similar for Peru 2. Ultimately, though, I'm not the biggest Pol 2 fan, so that doesn't affect me a ton, but when that Hamon Karn kit comes out that you definitely are making, Bandai, because I'm watching you, and I'm going to make sure you make it, it better get Luna Maria Hawk levels of love. That's all I'm saying. I'll just leave it there. But you know who didn't leave it there? Freaking Bandai, because those weren't even the last announcements of the night, because it just kept on going. Because while those were the last announcements of this event, they weren't the last things that Bandai announced, because online, they revealed a couple more Gundam-based kits. Now, one of those was an MGSD Freedom with clear color, you know, pretty standard stuff, whatever. But the next one they announced was the Master Grade Rija Z. Now, if you remember a few years back, they made an updated version of the original ancient 20-year-old kit of the Master Grade Rija Z as the Unicorn version with the different color scheme from the Unicorn anime. And this had a few new parts. They updated some joints, they updated the sculpting in some areas like the head and chest, and most importantly, they changed the hands so they don't completely suck. And what they just announced today was basically that Unicorn version of the Rija Z with all the improvements and updates and quality of life additions in the original Shars Kenner Tech colors. And this is a bit of a thing that Bandai's been experimenting lately with things like the DOM, where they basically take an old Master Grade model and they just improve it a little bit. And I gotta say, it looks pretty nice. And on the bright side, any sort of Gundam-based exclusives like this always end up making their way onto the USP Bandai shop, so even if you can't make it to Fukuoka in person, you'll still have a chance to pick one of these up, provided you're in one of the 3 countries on Earth that has their own web shop. And while the Bandai Hobby event continued for another day to show some non-Gundam model kits, that is where the Gunpla news ended for this event. Just sit back and just think about what you just heard, reflect on what you just saw, and how completely different that is from a lot of Gunpla events we've seen lately. Because if you're newer to the hobby, you've just been here for a few years, you might not really get why a lot of the older fans complain so much about how few Bandai kits get released. But this is why. Because what you're looking at right now, what I just walked you through the experience of going through, what you might have experienced firsthand yourself, this is the Gunpla event experience. This is what it was like in 2018, 2017, 2016, 2019. This is what people expect from Bandai. And for the first time in many years, they finally delivered. And speaking of delivering, guys, if you want some nice, cool new retail Gunpla of your own delivered right to your home and you're in America, New Type HQ is still a partner of the channel, so if you want to support this channel here and buy some kits for yourself, there is an affiliate link down in the description below. Really would appreciate going down there and using it. It does help out the channel. So thanks for watching, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed. And as always, I'm your host, Second Soundwave. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.